You're listening to the Really Very Crunchy podcast with your hosts, Emily
and Jason. Don't usually start off like this, but today, if you're listening to this on the day that it came out, you're having a book signing in Nashville.
It's a meet and greet. It's actually the next day.
It's Wednesday.
It's on Wednesday.
These come out on Wednesdays. My goodness. That's how involved she is with this process, the post-production process, people. She has no idea.
Oh, you're always editing on Tuesday. That's just what I was thinking. Okay. Well, if you're in Nashville...
It actually comes out the very next day.
Let's confuse you a little more. So what will the date be?
All right. July 17th.
Okay. July 17th at 10 a.m., we're meeting at the Cook Day Use area, which I have no idea what that means, but I'm just saying it. If you search Cook Day Use area, I think you'll find us. We're going to be there with Jenny Urich and her husband, Josh, from 1,000 Hours Outside. Jason will be there, and we're just signing books, hanging out. You don't have to buy a book. You don't even have to have a sign a book. We could sign your toe.
Yeah.
Or something.
Yeah.
Depends on your toe splay.
Bring your wooden mallard. We'll sign those.
Yeah, that'd be fun.
I mean, I'm not signing anything. I'm just here.
You could.
I have been asked to sign your book before one time.
Yeah.
Felt so weird, but I did have a section.
I know.
The Jason Says.
I think it's great. Yeah.
I should have just signed under the Jason Says part.
I was asked to sign someone else's book.
See, that's awkward.
And you were like, no, you can't do that.
I still feel that way.
Okay. Well, I sent them a book later.
Yeah. Well, that was nice. Mm-hmm. And then you just sign like a piece of paper or something or a book plate.
Yeah.
But yeah. I actually wanted to start with comments of the week this week because it has to do with our topic.
Okay.
Sleep.
That was so cheesy.
That was some good sound effects.
I know.
I didn't even hit a button for that. That was awesome.
I really want to start a children's story podcast. So there's my snore.
Yeah.
See, I'm just proving myself.
I'm going to save that in the sound effect bank. This is from Alicia Bonnert on YouTube. Yes, please do a video on sleep and co-sleeping. ... because I skipped some. That's a long comment. We got so much criticism when our first son was born because we didn't force him to stay in a crib/bassinet. Criticism from other parents. We've never faced that. Now I'd put the crickets sound effect in if I had.
Yeah.
And we have one from Daryl Brisnati. I am so sorry if I destroyed your pronunciation, from YouTube. Glad to hear other parents with "we sleep where we sleep" sleep patterns.
Yep.
We sleep where we sleep.
The important thing there is that we're sleeping.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
That's what's truly important.
Most of the time.
Yeah. I think you have a more negative lens of our sleeping situation, and I'm more positive. And really, it's all about perspective, Jason.
I certainly have had a negative thought process towards our sleep life from the beginning, though I do think it has evolved over time, and I have seen the light, so to speak. What do we do now, essentially? Where are we right now? What is our sleep philosophy right now? Not for newborn, not for anything. Like, we have a 6 and a 4-year-old. You could just tell people, what are we doing right now, so we have some perspective. And
it's very recently changed. It has
from my perspective.
No, our perspective or our actions. It is very recently changed.
Okay,
because our 6-year-old was sleeping in his own bed.
Yeah,
and then when your mom passed away, we sort of like took a step back because he has a lot of anxiety, and now one of us is sleeping with each child. Mm-hmm. And except the last 3 days you haven't been feeling well, so I've been sleeping with both kids. But I've actually really enjoyed that. If you want to just sleep by yourself forever, that's fine.
The whole king-size Nature-pedic bed to myself.
Yeah. I mean, what do you mean? Our philosophy is that we parent through the night as well.
Oh, interesting.
And so I guess it's called like responsive parenting.
Wait, just don't turn off parenting at night?
That sounds kind of rude, I guess, if you are on the other side of it, but that's just what people call it, parenting through the night. So, yeah, one of our kids, like I said, Oak, struggles with anxiety about throwing up, and that's pretty much what he struggles with.
Yeah, and we were a little nervous about, it was his first experience with a loved one passing away. And
So then, like when we were doing that, I was still in the room with him, but in my own bed because we have a large bedroom for them. And then Jason was sleeping with Alder. Well, then Jason decided he wanted to switch it up and put Alder in his own bed. And it was going great getting them to sleep. Like they would just go to bed in their own bed and we'd tuck them in and say goodnight and leave.
However,
at first, because Alder made the decision that he wanted his own bed. So we had a full-size bed in that room for him, but he said he wanted a twin-size bed because the full was too big. And I can understand that. He's little. So we got him a twin. At first, it was going great, but then he was wanting to do like all these, like, I want to hug you a million times. And then like you're leaving the room and he's like, wait, one more hug, wait.
But that wasn't even the problem.
It felt so frustrating to me because I just, like when I was leaving, I just wanted to leave. And I could feel my temper getting shorter because that was just how I wanted it to be done. I don't know. I felt less frustrated when I used to lay down with them than I did having to try and get out of the room.
But that's an issue for you.
Yeah, that's
especially.
My own. Yeah.
That part of the whole deal didn't bother me because we'd take turns putting them down at night, reading to them, singing, all that stuff. I think the biggest turnaround for that was that he would wake up 3 to 4 times a night, come looking for us. And we had decided we were not going to let him in our bed because we didn't want to start that habit. Yeah.
And so then we were just taking him back up to his bed,
And so we were dealing with, and he was waking up his brother.
Yeah, I think that was the biggest thing, is that then he would wake up Oaks, and then Oaks would start feeling his anxiety about throwing up when he wouldn't normally wake up in the middle of the night at all.
So basically, my desire for being, air quotes, normal, a normal sleeping family, brought disaster upon our home. Nobody was sleeping.
I told you that from the beginning. I was like,
I told you so.
Let's set up a bed in the podcast room, because the podcast room is right down from their bedroom, and it used to be a bedroom, and that's where you used to sleep with Alder, and I slept with Oaks just right down the hall. That was sort of normal. At least we were all on the same
floor.
Yeah, like you and I were on the same level.
Yeah.
So I just think we went too hard, too fast, too far. What I've noticed about children is you have to go at their pace, and you have to be willing to go at their pace. And so then, with my philosophy of parenting anyway, so then like just let it happen. And if you want to nudge it in the right direction, you can't, it's not just like ripping a Band-Aid off. You have to do things gradually, which is not the case for everything in our parenting, because our kids would never do anything new if we didn't force them into it. That's their personalities. They're very timid and nervous about trying new things, like, for example, water slides. To someone who would call themselves like a gentle parent who's like, you'll do it when you're ready, whatever. If we took that approach with everything, our kids really would never do anything.
And so I kind of like set them in my lap and
set them and go.
Yeah.
And then know that they'll love it.
Yeah, I never push them to do something that I don't think they would actually be ready to do.
Yeah. You are so good about knowing their level of
there's
skill.
been plenty of things where I'm like, no, I'm not going to make you do that.
Yeah.
I won't make you do that because...
And every time you've pushed them to do something, they have absolutely loved it. Every single time.
And I think my strength in that is because I am like them. I don't like heights. I don't like big scary things. And so I understand that level of nervousness, but I also understand what I have had to overcome to enjoy, and I know where they are mentally. And I can then, when it comes to sleep, though, I'm obviously wrong.
You can't just push them.
Guys, you'll be fine. There's no such thing as monsters.
Monsters aren't even the issue. That's what's so weird. For Alder, a little bit, but we're just like, God didn't make monsters. Monsters aren't real. And he pretty much accepted that. I guess that's
At
true.
what point is it a monster and not a monster? Does it need to like be from a different planet or what? I mean, I think dinosaurs constitute as monsters. They just don't exist today. I mean, bears. Can you imagine a brown? If you had a brown bear in your bedroom, you would think it's a monster.
That was a thing for Oaks for a long time. Were animals, just wild animals. He was worried about that. Just like jaguars. He was so worried about jaguars.
I remember that, yeah.
There are no jaguars in our woods.
God didn't make jaguars.
But I will say, when I was a kid, one time, I mean, this is totally different, but one time there was a rodeo in town and a bull got out and it ran down our road.
Wow.
A bull, a wild, kicking, crazy bull. And I guess technically, if there was a circus coming through town, a jaguar could get out. But
that's what we said to Oaks as we put him down for bed. We want to be honest with you. It is possible. There are monsters, and if they could, they would eat you, but they're not here. If you don't mind, can you give people, I'm sure some are very curious, what has our, since we've had kids, what has our sleeping journey been like? How did we start when we first had a child? Everybody around us, all the people we knew, it was, okay, you have to put your baby down. And, you have to wake them to feed them every however long.
Most people would say don't do that.
That's not what we were told.
That's what the pediatrician told us.
I know. And I'm telling you I'm just saying what we were told to do. We were very inexperienced, didn't have, but
nobody ever told us that infant sleep was even an issue. I mean, I was gifted the book Baby Wise. And I read it, and it seemed very straightforward. Like, when your baby is 6 months old, then they need to learn independence, and you start working on that via setting them down in their crib, closing the door, and putting on headphones so you don't hear them cry.
Whose idea was it that a 6-month-old needs independence?
I don't know, but it was what everyone did. I had never met anyone who co-slept with their children.
Right.
I didn't, or at least openly saying so.
Especially starting out with intention to.
Yeah.
I mean, we always hear about, they end up in our bed all the time.
Yeah,
that's fine. But like, we never heard of anybody intending to co-sleep or bed share.
Yeah, I guess just the culture in this area is that people make their kids cry it out. And that's what our parents did. Maybe you weren't made to cry it out because you were bottle propped. So you probably didn't have to cry it out. Your mom was just like, I'm going to go prop this bottle and he'll be fine.
It was so good.
I mean, I remember it. I have heard of so many people doing that where they didn't ever have to sleep train their kid because they just handed them a bottle when they went to bed. And like, that sounds pretty sweet. But
yeah,
I mean, it does lead to like increased ear infections and stuff like that.
Never even had one.
Really?
I've never had an ear infection that I know of.
Really? Even when you were a child?
Even when I was bottle propped.
It's because you have such large ears. There's no room for the fluid.
My mama saw my ears. She's like, oh, I can bottle prop that baby.
Oh, for sure. Our kids,
you won't have to deal with the ear infection.
Well, I hate to say this because I feel like anytime I say something, like the whole jinxing thing, when you say something and then it happens, it happened with strep throat. I was like, my kids have never had strep throat. Not 1 week later.
The next week.
What?
Yeah. Well, maybe you shouldn't say it.
Yeah, I'm not going to say it.
Just say it.
They have large ears. That's all I'm going to say. Both of them have large ears. They take after you, and they have taken after you.
Yeah.
In that area. I'm not saying it out loud.
Yeah.
Though, if your kids are prone to ear infections, mullein
Stop
and garlic oil.
bottle propping them.
No. Mullein and garlic oil. They make like mullein drops. You can put it in your kid's ear. Our kids have complained of ear pain before, and I just pop that clove of garlic in and make them lay on their side, and it has taken care of it.
It's pretty crazy.
That's what I do too. Anyway, to get back on track. So yeah, we just thought we were going to do what everybody else did. That's what you did. And I remember my mom telling me a story of whenever she made me cry it out, that my dad had to hold her back from going in to get me. And
well, that's what
that's
you always
a common,
hear.
That's a common story.
Yeah. So our pastor at the church that we went to at the time did a series on parenting and preached from the pulpit that you should
need to cry it out.
That you should have your kid cry it out.
That was the first time I knew we were not going to stay at that church.
That was the first indicator.
I was shocked to hear that. That really is not.
Was that later? Was that after we had already had Oaks?
I think it was while we were like in the throes of it. Yeah. Yeah. So,
I mean, there's more there because we can go into what you talked about in your book, and not everybody's read your book, so it may be interesting to go into that a little bit. That we had friends there, fairly close friends at the time, and their child was sleeping wonderfully through the night. I'm going to keep it vague, but it seemed every chance she got, she would remind you that yours wasn't sleeping well through the night. It's
hard to see a friend struggling and you feel like you have the answer.
Yeah.
And then your friend is not listening to that. So I can totally see it from
the part where we chose to.
Yeah, we chose to do things differently against their advice. And therefore, it was hard. And it was, like I could see how she would be like, why aren't you listening to me? Just listen to me. You're struggling. Your kid is not sleeping well. You're not sleeping well. You're having all this like suffering, quote unquote, not really,
I would classify what we were going through as suffering.
And then she has the answer, but I disagreed with her answer. So, but partially because she said, her kid cried so hard, she found vomit in the crib. The next, she could hear that he threw up, and then she found it the next day whenever she went in the morning to get him out of the crib. I can't do that. I could not do that.
Yeah.
My intuition is to respond to a crying baby, especially. And I cannot suppress that.
Yeah.
You could not hold me back.
No, I wouldn't try. I wouldn't try to hold you back.
We tried a little. We did. Okay, so when we were going through all this with our kid not sleeping well, waking up all the time to nurse, and there's so many levels there. I don't know how deep you want to get it. My supply wasn't great. So then he just had to eat more often if I wanted to exclusively breastfeed, which I did.
All the while for that whole first bit, we weren't trying to put him in our bed.
Right. He was sleeping in a little bassinet next to our bed. And I would get up and I would go to a different room to not wake you. Remember, I'd take him in the very early time, I would take him to the living room. But it was also a furniture thing. I was new at breastfeeding. It was hard. You have to use the bumpo when everything's awkward and you don't know, you need the support, whatever.
Right.
So, and then we got a crib in our room and we decided I would feed him every 2 hours. But if he woke up other times than that, we would let him fuss. Or cry even to go to sleep, knowing that we were there. But that didn't even work out for us.
Didn't work out.
We were laying there arguing about I have to get up.
Mm-hmm.
I have to do it.
Well, because it also was like, it wasn't every 2 hours, it's every 30 minutes.
But the goal was that he would sleep 2 hours.
Yeah.
And then
we should have just like sat him down, read him a list of goals.
Okay,
this
man.
is the amount of time you're allowed to wake up. Hey, it's just disobedient.
You'll be nursed every 2 hours. So
disobedient infant. Goodness.
Yeah. So yeah, it was about every 30 minutes. But then I just hated that. Mm-hmm. And we weren't using a pacifier or anything. You wouldn't take a pacifier. I don't know. Anyway, I just remember our marriage was on the rocks because we were trying to get our kid to self-soothe at 6 months old. It was the weirdest thing ever. And so finally I was just like, forget this. Can we please just co-sleep? Like, can we please just pull him in the bed? And it felt like everything got so much better.
I'll take a marriage on the rocks, please. Everything changed. Everything changed for the better.
Yeah. It was still hard. He still woke up, to nurse, and I wasn't used to nursing like in my sleep. And so like there was a transition and it was still difficult, but I think he started waking up less knowing that I was right there. And then it just, I don't know, it felt more natural. I felt way better about it. And I was getting more rest because I was not getting up. Mm-hmm. I would just pull out. Yeah, nurse and put it away and
right. And what's interesting is now he's almost 7 and a very independent child.
Yeah,
Selfstarter. It's not like it defies what you may think would happen if you're just like rushing to the children's needs at every beck and call. That's what you're supposed to do for a baby. Mm-hmm. It's their only way to communicate. Mm-hmm. And so what you're doing when they're screaming out, asking for something and ignoring them is communicating to them that what they're saying doesn't matter.
You are getting a little controversial a little fast.
Oh, is that controversial?
Oh, yeah. See, one reason I didn't want to do this podcast is because this is such a sensitive topic. Nobody really knows the answer. And when you start saying something, like you don't understand the mother's heart. A man cannot understand the pain and
that's nothing new. A man can't understand a woman. Tell me something I don't know.
I know, but like whenever we made that video about breastfeeding and formula feeding and whatever, I was like, oh, I don't like this. I don't like this at all. And you're like, people know it's a joke. People get it. I'm like, some things are off limits, Jason. And you're like, nah, it's hilarious. Let's just do it. Who was right?
Well,
how much flack did we get?
Plenty.
So much, and that is the same as this episode. I'm like, oh, don't go saying people are ignoring their children. You need some blanket statements.
I'm not saying it's not hard. Like sleep training a baby is a hard thing to do.
And some people have to do that kind of thing, though. If they're sending their kid to like daycare, somebody's not going to co-sleep with your kid at daycare at nap time. They have to lay down in a crib by themselves and go to sleep. And they have to be able to do that as a skill. Mm-hmm. So, like, I think it totally depends on where you are, like not everybody has the ability to do that. I guess I could co-sleep at night, but oh man, it's tricky. It's just like any parenting topic is so tricky. It totally depends on the path that you are walking. I'm just saying that I can see both sides, but obviously I feel extremely passionate about co-sleeping because I chose it even when it was hard. And even when we were struggling, I continued to choose that, but it got easier is the thing. And it has been a wonderful thing for our family, I think.
Yeah, well,
there are pros and there are cons. One pro is our kids can sleep anywhere that we are.
If we were sleeping outside in the street, they'd be fine.
I'm telling you. It's
as
like,
long as we're there.
No, I remember seeing my friends go on vacation and they're like, well, we have to have a pack and play and we can't share a hotel room because we have to keep it quiet. It has to be like whatever darkness and like all these specifications for their kids to be able to sleep.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
I will say, when we put our kids down, we can pretty much turn on lights, make some noise, do whatever we have to do as long as they know that we're nearby.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Especially as
about that.
Baby. I mean, I just nurse our kid wherever we were and they'd go to sleep.
Well, I remember Oaks, he would just hang out in the living room with us in the evenings because we didn't want to take him to the back room or whatever.
Yeah.
So he just hung out. He slept on the couch with his hands behind his head.
Yeah.
Just chilling.
Because he could hear our voices, and I think that brought him comfort.
Yeah.
Just knowing we were near.
Yeah.
Taking him to Alaska when he was 1 was the easiest thing we've ever done.
Yeah.
Like, easiest travel with a 1-year-old. He didn't fuss one bit. He just sat in my lap and nursed and fell asleep. And whenever he wanted to nurse, he just nursed. And that was just the cure-all for everything. And there was no moment of fussing or screaming on the plane. It was not hard at all.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Like, it's been really convenient and nice. It's not hard for them to go to sleep, and it's not hard for them to stay asleep.
But everything, it was different with Alder, our second son, because from the very get-go, before we even had him, we knew exactly what we were going to be doing. You immediately, he slept on your chest or my chest, mostly yours, for
like 6 months or more.
From the beginning.
He was born and I pulled him onto my chest and there he stayed for, months and months.
Yeah.
It was so nice, and it's really cute because he's 4 years old now. And sometimes when we're laying down at night, he'll want to just lay his head on my chest. And it's like, oh, that's where you were. That's where you've always been, and that has to just be like a really sweet, soothing thing for him.
Yeah.
To just lay his head on my chest. So, it's really sweet.
But the point being is that, it was a much different experience between him and our first. Because in the first, we're switching things up, trying to figure it out.
Putting him in the bassinet. Actually,
so sorry, Oaks,
we had such a hard time with Oaks that when Alder was born, I was like, I want one of those snoo beds. Remember?
Yeah.
It's this bed that you strap your kid into, and it will like shake in response to their crying. It's like a Bluetooth hot box.
Yeah.
Like, it's like a
no
mechanical
EMF protection there.
nanny.
Uh-huh.
It's supposedly amazing. It'll make like a shh noise and shake and rock them and try and soothe them back. And then you can use settings to like minimize it. Anyway, they're like $1,000, but it was a huge expense for us. And we decided we were going to try it because sleep was so bad. It was worth it. And then like the first time I put him in it, like we did the chest thing. And then I was like, I should do the snoo because we bought this. So I put him down and I started to strap him in and I couldn't do it. I was like, nope, we're sending it back. Nope, this doesn't feel right at all. Never mind, I take it back. We're doing what I want to do.
We almost changed it up. Almost. And it's good that we didn't.
Yeah, because he has really been a great sleeper for his whole life. He's been, except for in the car.
At what point has bed sharing gone too far? Is there ever a point? Is it 18?
10 in my mind.
10?
Like, I don't really foresee us co-sleeping once our kids are in double digits.
Like we all get up from bed. Oh, boys, let's go. It's time to go vote.
Though, my brother used to live in Morocco, and he said over there, there was a room, and there's like a ledge that goes all the way around the room. And whole families just sleep in that room together.
Do you think that's just a very American thing?
Yes,
that
it's
you
totally Western.
Every kid has to have their own room. The parents can only be in their bedroom, which is that's kind of the point I was making earlier, is that I come from a cultural, I had to have a cultural mind shift of, the parents sleep in their bedroom, the kids each get their own room. That's just what society says you should have. There's this whole America, you need to be independent, go grab life by the horns, be independent by the time you're 3 months old, and go get a job, kid, and...
Speaking of, it's really funny, Alder the other day, you know how you ask kids what they want to do when they grow up?
Uh-huh.
Alder just randomly came up to me and he was like, Mom, when I grow up, I just want to be a normal person, but not work.
Yeah.
I just want to live my life. He's 4 years old. Just want to live. Like, I'll go to the store and buy things, but I don't want to have to go to a job.
In other words,
I'm sorry, kid.
Could I be a billionaire, son? Do you have a trust fund for me? I don't really want to do anything.
I was like, yeah, that's the dream, kid. I hope we're not setting him up. Like, because you're always home.
Yeah, he probably thinks we don't work at all.
Yeah.
We're just chilling. Dad's just on his computer making a Crunchy Mom video because that's
what they like to do. That's just their hobby. Sorry. Yes, you're right, though. Like, it's a very Western thing for everyone to have their own room. If you really think about it, most people don't have that luxury in the world.
Correct.
For everybody to have their own room, their own sleeping space. And whenever people used to give me flack in my family, in my circle, whenever we were co-sleeping, I didn't really know anybody else doing that. I used to tell them, can you honestly tell me that you don't think Mary co-slept with Jesus? And like, nobody ever had anything to say to that. I'm like, Jesus was co-slept with. What are you going to say?
Wow. A little bit of manger sharing there.
I guess they did put him in a manger.
Set him in a manger. I mean, mangers can be big. They were in the same room. I'll say that.
That is technically co-sleeping.
Yeah.
Or,
okay, to be fair, the parents were sleeping on the floor where all the animal poop and everything was. So, yeah, I mean, I think they're doing okay. They did it right, given the circumstances. My goodness. What a thing to say to people.
That was
to
the
prove
only
your
thing
point.
I had. That's all I had.
Dr. James McKenna.
Legend.
I don't think you can go through this whole episode without referencing this man. He's quoted as saying, "Do what works for your family and trust yourself to know your baby better than any external authority. You are spending the most time with your baby, and every baby is different."
Mm-hmm.
There's your blanket statement right there.
Yeah. Exactly. And I mean, it will be different for families that, like, people who can't breastfeed.
Mm-hmm.
It's probably a little.
You're talking about bed sharing.
Yeah. Like, it would be different to get their kid to sleep in their own space if they weren't breastfeeding.
Mm-hmm.
Because there is an external source of comfort.
Right.
Whether, that's the intention or not, babies still do obviously rely on their mom, even if they're not breastfeeding. Like, they still have a special bond, a wonderful connection. But the like sucking comfort, which is a scientific thing that babies like need that motion for comfort,
mm-hmm.
Is on an external device. So, like, I think what I'm trying to say is it's just a little different. It's just a little, like, parents have more options there. Just saying every baby is different. So, yeah, if a baby takes a pacifier, which if I have a third child, I think I will definitely be interested in dabbling in the pacifier world. Or if a baby...
we've tried with 2. Neither one of them cared a thing about it.
I know, but I started way too late. I'm like,
I thought pacifiers weren't good. Like it does something with the teeth or something.
yeah, you're supposed to stop it by the time they're a year old, I think. And there's mixed things, but definitely you have to get special pacifiers that are good for their oral development, and then you have to wean them of the pacifier before a year old. I don't know. I haven't ever gotten
I don't
to
want
use
to
a
have to
pacifier.
wean them off of something.
I know that is hard.
But I want them to stop whining. So it's like
I see babies who take pacifiers, and it seems like a really nice thing. Like,
but doesn't that
in
start
the car,
like
just put the pacifier in.
Doesn't it delay speech and stuff?
I think it depends. It totally depends on the kid. Just like that quote, every child is different.
Well, what does Dr. McKenna know?
Every kid is different.
Does he even have children?
You can't know. And that's what
I'm sure he does.
I just hate that. It's like, well, we don't really know.
All right.
You don't really know what you're doing if it's going to be the thing that turns them into a well-rounded person.
Oh, well, it's not going to be one thing ever.
True.
Your choice of pacifier or no pacifier will not determine whether or not they're going to be good, upstanding citizens.
But let me go back to this.
Unless it is.
You said
the evil villain origin story. My mama refused the pacifier.
I wasn't going to do pacifiers. The only time that I decided to do pacifiers is when I was at my wit's end and they're like 4 months old and I'm like, get that kid a pacifier. It's far too late by that point.
I remember just putting it in Oaks' mouth and he's
just like chew it and spit it out.
Like, this is not mama. He has another quote that also kind of goes along with that air quotes friend you had who is always comparing her child to your child and making you feel like utter complete dirt in the ground.
It's so funny because I am over that. Like, I've worked through it. I can see her side of things. I have no ill will, but anytime you talk about that situation, you have like a fire in your eyes.
It blazes within me. Don't confuse the perceived medical good of sleeping through the night with a moral good. The idea that good babies sleep through the night. The worst invention culturally for all parents was this notion of the good baby.
Well, it's just like natural birth. You don't get a medal for having unmedicated birth. You do feel a self-satisfaction and like, look what I accomplished. But really, in the end, there's no trophy or anything. And it shouldn't matter to anybody else. Whatever you're choosing to do shouldn't matter. And so it's like the good baby. You know, you have a good baby. You must be doing something right because your baby's sleeping through the night. Your baby's so well adjusted. I had people ask me, is he a good baby? When I had little babies. And by all standards, no. My babies were not, quote unquote, good babies. But they were amazing babies because they were babies and babies are cute.
That would be a little awkward. Is he a good baby? No.
No, actually.
No, he's a terrible
just
baby.
Just the worst baby you could have asked for.
I can't wait for him to become a kid because he's a terrible baby. 4 years later, no, he's a terrible kid. Can't stand him. Hope he's a good adult. The main issue is with all of this is that you Google bed sharing, and I know Google, sorry everybody, but Google's going to tell you, it's going to bring up all the articles that it's absolutely the most dangerous thing you could do ever, and it's the worst idea. Don't ever do it. Please don't do it. It's horrible. However, really one of the first things that pops up is from the NIH.gov, from the National Library of Medicine. And one of the first studies that they're talking about, there is a widespread consensus that co-sleeping, defined as a sharing any sleep surface, with hazardous circumstances increases the risk of death. However, not all experts agree that bed sharing is universally unsafe. Authorities in Spain, the United Kingdom, and Norway are no longer advising against bed sharing when no hazards exist. So I think the main problem is that people surround kids with like stuffies,
and
pillows,
yeah.
big comforters
Duvets,
and stuff. Yeah. The actual data that I am finding and that people have found over the years is that the act of bed sharing, when done safely, is actually very safe.
Yeah, I think there are just so many caveats. Like, it needs to be a firm mattress, and you can't have pillows or blankets, or I can't remember all of it. It's called the Safe Sleep 7. And so you definitely, if you're going to do it, you have to look at those guidelines, which I also am not so sure how I feel about dads co-sleeping with tiny babies. Because there's a sense that a mother has. And even breastfeeding versus not breastfeeding. When you're a breastfeeding mom, you have this like extra sense of where the baby is, and I can't quote any studies about that. I just remember reading about it whenever I had my kid. Do you have something?
Over 60% of all U.S. mothers bed share.
Wow.
And the proportion of breastfeeding mothers who bed share is likely to be much higher, according to this study.
So I bet more people co-sleep than they want to admit.
Oh, that's what this seems to indicate quite a bit. Because if you talk to people because it's taboo or whatever, or it
used to be. I think now it's becoming more accepted, but definitely just even within the last 5 years.
Yeah, because it depends on where you are, I guess. But here, man, you tell people you're bed sharing, they look at you like you're an alien.
Mm-hmm. Especially when you have 2 queens pushed together and then a full pushed together without. You call it your ultra mega bed.
Yeah. That doesn't help.
Yeah, that doesn't help.
Yeah. How many mega beds have we had?
We've had a few mega beds. That was our ultra mega bed. But then moving here, we've had 2 different mega beds. Different layouts, different setups. When we were first getting Oaks to sleep in his little cubby, he has a bed cubby in his room that's built into the wall. It's really cool. We pushed a bed against the bed cubby and then moved it away. Slow and steady.
Bed sharing most likely has a net protective effect when associated with breastfeeding in the absence of hazards. So they keep hitting this point over and over again. It's like if you're bed sharing and breastfeeding in its absence of the hazards, it is
a net positive.
Yeah.
So
Versus
safer.
Versus,
there are those caveats.
It's
breastfeeding.
Always nuance.
Yeah, must be following the safe guidelines for co-sleeping. I think what we have to keep in mind when we're making these decisions for our family is that no one's experience is going to be the same.
Well, I'm fully on board now with basically whatever, because any notion of anything I've ever had about parenting or really just life in general before getting married is just out the window. And I'm not saying that's
rude. Like, I'm like, no, we're not doing it your way.
No, because I think it was a discovery together. We discovered things together that did not align with really our culture, our current culture. We've been told that we're a little bit European in our actions, which I don't know what that means exactly. You don't shave your pits, so I guess that's true.
I do sometimes. It's not an all the time shave the pit.
And plenty of Europeans do, I'm sure. I'm just kidding. But yeah, no, it's not from you so much. I mean, yeah, you've opened my eyes to a lot of things, but really it's the experience of, listen, we've tried multiple angles of a lot of different things. And
what it comes back to is that what is the natural, normal process is what seems to fit our family best.
So do you feel like...
I feel like I'm not a pioneer, or I'm not a trailblazer. I'm just doing what is meant to be done.
Oh.
Not trying
That's
to be
controversial.
How? If you're living in the wilderness, building a grass hut to live in, and you birth a baby and your food source is clearly your breast, because if you set a baby on your belly, they'll like scooch up to your breast. They will find your breast to eat when they are newborns.
Please stop saying "you're" like I have breasts.
I'm just saying in general. So yes, our bodies fail us. Yes, sometimes it doesn't work out, and it's like so annoying, and I get that, and it can be so devastating too.
Well, here's what I really hate is that our culture dominates so much of what is or constitutes what is natural or not natural, or what is right or what isn't right. When there's an obvious biological correct way of things, whether that's responding to a baby when they're crying it out is not a historic thing. It's not a it is
I think it came from the same person who said, "Don't kiss your baby too much." Seriously,
people don't talk about that one that much. We kind of just put
glaze
that under
over
the we
that
glaze
guy,
over
yeah.
the kiss. He was a little intense at times. No, that's what. And I'm not even like saying anything against the people who do that. Whatever. I'm really not. But it is weird to me that it's a cultural thing and not so much of what is right naturally, biologically. What is the correct way to go about it? Because again, you didn't just set your kid in another room 1,000 years ago.
You actually couldn't because, well, you didn't have another room, and also there were outside dangers. You needed to keep your baby quiet.
Yeah,
likely.
well, and so people
or the jaguars would find you.
Here we go. We're
and
going to come
get
full
you.
circles. Yeah. But so then the argument there would be that, well, we don't live in that world, so therefore we can do this new thing.
Culturally speaking, I mean, I am proud to be an American. I do love that we live in a free country.
Careful what you say.
I am
careful.
I'm being careful, but if you look at our...
Don't you dare say you're proud to be in a free country.
What? Oh, see, I thought you were going the other way. Like, careful what you say. You don't want to offend those people. Honestly, we are like one of the least healthy countries in the world. There's so much stuff going on. Can you not look at America and sort of be like, well, we're kind of a hot mess.
Oh, yeah, we're a hot mess.
We just don't have it together. Everybody hates everybody. Nobody can have a civil conversation. We're all pacifying ourselves with our phones and television. And like, it is not really a good culture that we have going on. There have been great things about America, obviously, but some things need to change. And so, just saying, like,
I think...
Yeah, I hate that it's a cultural thing, and I think that it's wrong.
I think you have to find your culture, in the subculture. You have to find your subculture, because the overarching culture is a hot mess. You have to go from this national culture and bring it down to what's your circle. Who are your close people? Obviously, not everything's going to be cohesive for everybody, whatever. But, I mean, you do have to find like-minded people and not be so concerned with what the world at large is saying needs to happen.
But even if you can't find like-minded people, I think that we were given an intuition, and I think we shouldn't always suppress that.
Yeah.
Like, especially the motherly intuition.
I think we're doing all right. And
Lots to learn.
so are you, listener.
Exactly. Everybody's going to turn out different. Everybody's going to do their own
Unless
thing.
you're just treating your kids horribly, and then you should be ashamed of yourself. And that's left up to interpretation. If you felt guilty by me saying that, it's on you.
Oh,
It is on you.
Man, Jason, this podcast is so much harder than I expected because it's like, I don't want to make anybody mad. I don't want to say anything wrong.
Just so you know, we recorded this for 4 hours, and it's a 40-minute podcast or however long it is now. So there you go. Tons
Lots
of offensive
cut out.
stuff. If we had a Patreon, you could hear all the offensive stuff. No, I'm kidding.
Thank you for listening to the Really Very Crunchy podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure you leave a review. I don't know how you could because it was so hard.
If you bed share, leave a review.
Yeah.
If you don't, please don't leave a review.
But I'm sure your kids are great. And be sure you check out the show notes to see what's up with the Morrow family.
Thank you for listening. I'm so sorry.
Forgive us.